Hey guys, Travis with Everglades. Today we're going to take a look at the John Deere P-Tier compact excavator lineup. Stick around. So let's talk about how an excavator gets its name in the industry, right? So obviously behind me we have everything from the 17 to the 60. But what does that mean? Well, an excavator's model number typically comes from its weight in metric tons. For example, a 60 weighs 6 metric tons, 17, 1.7 metric tons. This even applies to your bigger excavators, like say your 210s or your 350s. Like a 210 would be 21 metric tons, right? So that's typically what you'll see across the industry. Now, let's get into the details of the P-Tier compact excavator lineup. So since our last excavator video, our budget has increased exponentially. So on the front end of the excavator, we have two different options for couplers. We can do the wedge style coupler, which is what this is. We can also do a pin grabber style if you have pin grabber style buckets. Now the nice thing about the wedge here is changing buckets is very easy. You just have one bolt right here to remove, and this whole wedge will come out. You have two retainer clips here to make it a little bit easier to change, to hold it in there whenever you get ready to bolt it back in. But by and large, the way to change the bucket, remove this bolt, wedge falls out, change buckets, put the bolt back in, you're done. So you don't have to knock pins out, you don't have to do any kind of crazy stuff. That's all you got to do. Now, going back up into the stick of the excavator, your 26 and up all have this diverter valve standard on the boom. What that allows you to do is you can plug in, say, a hydraulic thumb and a breaker at the same time without having to drop your thumb, disconnect it, do whatever, right? You can leave it all hooked up right here in the diverter valve. Well, we can also see all of them are standard with this bracket on the back that allows you to bolt up a hydraulic thumb very easily. All right, so as we see where the stick meets the boom, we have a lot of plate steel right here that adds a lot of strength and rigidity to this joint, because this joint gets a lot of stress on it from digging and when guys will try to pry with it and so forth, right? So moving back a little bit further, a lot of the competitors just weld straight down here. There's about 14 inches of weld or so right there to give you some extra strength and rigidity right there on your boom. Following the boom down, you can see that your hydraulic lines here are protected with these Cardura sleeves right there to protect them against abrasion. Like let's say you're digging next to some branches or so forth, and you don't have to worry about them potentially puncturing your hydraulic line. Going back up here, all of them got work lights. If you look at the cylinder guard, that thing has a lot of steel in it. So they really didn't cut any corners whenever it comes to protecting your hydraulic cylinders, because if you damage these things on any of them, that can get expensive really fast. Now, going back through here, where you have these hydraulic lines, you can see they have Cardura sleeves on there protecting them from that abrasion and damage and so forth. Now, coming back to the swing post right here, John Deere uses one single large post, right? Now the alternative to that is you'll see some excavators use two smaller swing posts. The advantage of having one big swing post is you get a lot of strength and a lot of stiffness whenever you go to swing. So when you go to swing the boom, you feel, it just feels, I don't know how to describe it, but if you've run one, you know what I'm talking about. It just gives you like really stiff, positive control over where your boom's going. Also, if you look here, you've got plate steel and plate steel on either side of the swing post. So what that does, again, it goes back to strength and rigidity and overall durability of the machine. Now, even if you look at the Dozer blade down here, there's a lot of extra steel behind the blade. Now, John Deere knows you're going to be pushing a lot with it and you're going to be working with this machine. So that's reinforced with some extra steel. Now, another word about blades is you can put an optional angle blade on these machines as well. This one has it, right? So that is an option on some of these machines. Now, I could stand here and talk for a little bit longer, but that would be lame. Why don't we take one of these things out and dig with it? I don't think I could do that again if I tried, but as you can see, it's done. Starting off at the smallest compact excavator John Deere offers, we have the 17. Now, a lot of guys are like, man, I didn't know y'all even made one that small. Well, we do. So this thing's really popular with your, your septic guys that need to be able to get into a tight area, plumbers, things like that. A lot of them will use this machine. Also on the 17, you can retract the tracks inward to be able to fit in a backyard gate, which is a pretty big deal. Next size up, you got your 26. This one's great for concrete guys that are digging footers and so forth. Next, we have our 30, which the 30 is you kind of get a little bit more power with it and a little bit wider stance as opposed to the 26. Next, we got the 35. Now, the 35 industry-wide is the most popular compact excavator size because you get a lot of power and a lot of performance for not a whole lot of money and not a whole lot of weight. So this machine's still relatively easy to transport. You can still get it in a lot of places, but you can still do those tasks like, maybe setting some smaller trees, doing more extended trenching operations, that sort of thing. 35s are great for that. Now, once we go up from the 35, we get into the 50 and the 60. Now, once you get into these machines, you start to get into what some guys consider like a real excavator, right? Because once you get into the 50 and 60, you can start doing those applications like digging up, your stumps and so forth and craning stuff into position. You'll see these used on job sites a lot for different utility tasks. These are the larger compact excavators that John Deere offers. All right, so let's talk about some options. So on the 30 and up, you can get an enclosed cab with AC and heat. On the 35 and up, you can option into the angle blade and you can get the long stick. So what's the long stick? Let's talk about it. One thing you get with the long arm is extra counterweight on the back. So we can see this 30 right here doesn't have any extra counterweight on it. Now this 35 back here, you can see it's got this extra counterweight piece. Why does it got that? Well, it's got to offset the extra weight of having the longer stick up front. Now again, you can get the 35 and up with either a standard stick or a long stick. Standard stick, there's no extra counterweight on here, and you can dig a little bit closer to structures without the counterweight, or you can have the counterweight and a little bit longer stick. The choice is yours. All right, so let's talk about the parts of an excavator. You've obviously got your bucket. Here you have your coupler. We have the stick, the boom, and then back here we have the house, the blade, and your undercarriage. Those are the major components that make up what a compact excavator is. All right, so let's talk about serviceability on these things. So all John Deere compact excavators come standard with oil impregnated bushings. What these do is they reduce the amount of times that you have to grease the excavator. Because what these do is as they heat up, they actually secrete grease and help lubricate your bushings. So from back here, we can see we got our periodic maintenance chart right here at about eye level, so you can see exactly how often you need to service various components. Back here, we have our engine access door, which is lockable. You can swing this guy open, and from here you can get to your oil check, oil fill, fuel filter, so forth. Back here, we can open up this door, and we can get to our battery, our radiators, air filter, and and so forth. So everything you need to access for maintenance and daily checks is all at ground level, and it's easy to get to. All right, so I'm inside the cab of a John Deere 50P right now, and let's talk about what we got here. So our controls right here, we can switch them between excavator controls and backhoe controls. We also have our multi-function display here where we can see our fuel status, engine hours, coolant temperature, and some other things. Additionally, we can set the machine to auto idle or auto shutdown if we want to as well. Now through here we've also got our transmission controls, we got our light switch. Another thing you can do on these is you can silence the travel alarm. So if you're tracking over, you know, say some distance and you don't want to listen to the travel alarm the whole time, you can tap that button, disable the travel alarm, and that way it doesn't turn you into a basket case by the time you get where you're going. Now our foot pedals, we can swing them out to allow us to use them, or we can fold them up if we want the extra foot room. So your auto idle and your auto shutdown can save you a little bit of fuel on the job site. Also, your eco and power modes can save you some fuel as well if you need to switch between those two modes. All right, so here we have the lift chart, which is featured in every John Deere compact excavator. This will show you your lift capacity at various machine configurations. So obviously there's a lot of compact excavators out there, but why should you buy a John Deere compact excavator? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, serviceability. One of John Deere's biggest customer bases for these machines is independent rental companies, right? So you have a lot of your larger rental companies that use John Deere compact excavators. The reason for that is because they really don't require that much maintenance. The cost of ownership is pretty low. You can go out and run these things, make money with them without having to put a bunch of money back into them. The smoothness of the controls, that's another one. So if you run a Deere and you run a whatever, if you get in both of them and you just feel the way the John Deere feels when you, it's really hard to explain, but if you get in the seat of this thing and you cycle it through there, it just feels really good to run this machine. And if you've run one, you know what I'm talking about. The other reason is you get the excellent customer service and support that you would expect from Everglades equipment. Hey, so thanks for watching. So what do you think? I mean, if you really dug this video, we would appreciate it if you could hit it with a like and maybe a comment or two. I represent a lot of good people at Everglades Equipment, and we would love to have the opportunity to earn your business on your next one. Give us a shout.
That's why we need those Cardura sleeves.